So I'm going to get started, and I'm here with a panel today with the WTFoundation, and we are going to be talking about reentry, specifically reentry from prison. Everyone on this panel has been incarcerated at one time, and we're going to discuss and bring some awareness to the challenges or lack of challenges we might have faced. So I'm Holly Bott, and this is Never Hall. We are the moderators. And we're going to get started just by asking each of you if you can tell us how long you spent in prison and when you were released, and your name, of course. Go ahead, Z.
Zenaida, my last name too.
Whatever.
Zenaida, sentence 15, did 10. Well, get out at 9 because I worked for at least for a year.
And what year were you released?
2015.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
My name is Will Lever, and I am let me start again, sorry. My name is Will Lever. I was incarcerated for 10 years in both state and federal prisons. I got out most recently from a RICO charge and have been out for about 14 years now.
Okay, thanks. And I'm Holly Bott, as I said, and I served 8 years in prison, and I was released in 2018.
I am Never Hall. I did 8 years in prison. I was released earlier this year in 2024, June of 2024.
Marshawn, I was incarcerated for 8 years, and I've only been released for 27 days now.
Chris Soley, I was in prison for 2.5 years. I got released May 14th of 24.
My name is Kwaku Bruce. I got sentenced to a little over 6 years, about 7 years, and I was released back in December of 2023.
Before we continue, I'm going to try again because I didn't say when I got released. Everyone else I noticed did.
Go ahead.
All right. So my name's Will Lever. I was sentenced to 10 years in both state and federal prison. I got released in 2013 after doing all 10 years of my bid.
Okay. So do you want to go ahead and ask the first question?
Okay, so I'm going to start like this. We want to ask, before you got out, like we'll say 6 months before you got out of prison, right? Everybody makes a plan. Everybody's got plans, right?
Release
You got big ideas. You know, I'm going to get out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I want to ask you, what were your plans before you got out? What did you think your life was going to be like before you got out, right? And later we'll ask, you know, like what actually happened. But we want to know, like, what were you thinking? Like, what did you think your life was going to be when you got out? We're going to start at this side.
We're gonna start crying. No. So I made a list and I did all of that on that list.
Did you?
Yes.
That's
Bought a house, get married, get a business, graduated. I built brief, but I did every single one of them.
Awesome.
As far as it's hard because I did Anoka, pro in Anoka. I was an ISR for 18 months.
Okay.
And for those 18 months, I want to go back 18 times. Anoka is hard. It's just hard. But I get through it. I managed through it. It's kind of like, man, I have to show you how tough I am.
Yeah.
But it's easier to follow rules than try to be slick about it. That's what I noticed.
Yeah.
Yes, easier.
Okay.
For me, I've been in and out of prison a lot, so there was a lot of first times out for me. But I'll talk about the most recent time. I'd been convicted of a RICO charge, and I had been told that any future convictions, I would get what's called a continued criminal enterprise, which carries a minimum of 20 years to life in addition to your sentence. Then I could be hit with habitual offender, which would carry another 20 to 30 years, plus whatever I got convicted of. So for me, it was really important to make the right choices. But I didn't really know how to make those choices. I had turned to organized criminal activity because I felt that I didn't have a place in society. I didn't know how to make it in society. I didn't know, how to get a job and how to be like a regular citizen. And I didn't know how that was going to change when I was released. But luckily, I had learned a little bit about college and about the opportunities that could afford me, both in giving me funds through financial aid, which would allow me to have some stability, but also take a lot of the pressure off of getting out and wondering, how am I going to make it? How am I going to pay for a car? How am I going to pay for an apartment? And so when I got out, I was released at a perfect time when the school semester was just starting. And so I started to to go to school for computer programming originally, and for me, it was that plan that allowed me to continue to see a path where I could kind of stay on the right path, because I wasn't worried about how am I going to get this next paycheck. I didn't have to go out there and hustle or go back to organized criminal activity.
Right. That's nice.
So for me, I didn't know what to expect, because right up until almost the very end, the last 6 months of my time, I thought I was going to be going out homeless. Like, my family was like, you ain't coming here. We don't like you. You can't be here. And so I couldn't envision what that would look like. Where would I live? What kind of job would I have? Any of that without family support seemed really just hard for me to even picture. And then the summer before I was released at the end of the year, my parents changed their mind and said, you can come here. And so then that shift in thinking, I'd spent all this time planning for going out homeless and taking care of myself, and now my family saying, you can come here, I had to rethink everything. And so the only plan I had upon leaving was, some friends had said, make sure you do things slow, because no matter how slow you think you're going, it's still going to seem really fast for you and be overwhelming. So I made this list, like, day 1, get bank account. Day 2, driver's license. Like, 1 day for a task that I thought would take 30 minutes. That seemed slow to me. And it wasn't. Like, I still got out and I started having like facial twitches because I was so stressed out. I'm like, how can I even be stressed out? I thought I was taking things slow. So that's the only thought that I had was, I'm just going to have to find out. I'm just going to have to leave here and see what happens.
Right. No, for me, it was, I don't know, I was one of those guys who had big plans. You know what I mean? I wanted to step out, take over the world type thing. You know what I mean? But I got out, and it was like, I wish I had done what you guys had done. I wish I had made a list. Like, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. And I got out and I tried to tackle everything all at once. And it just didn't work. And I found myself really frustrated. But what I did end up doing is I didn't write it down, but in my mind I was like, okay, first steps. Because like you, I didn't have, well, at first you thought you weren't going to have anyone. But I don't know anyone in Minnesota. I don't have anyone in Minnesota. So for me, it was one of those things where it's like, okay, so I'm up here by myself. I don't know anybody. And so the only person I have to depend on is me. Fortunately though, there was the Trek program that I was in. There were the instructors that I was involved with. And I did not know Will at the time, but Will was a part of that program. And he kind of helped me step through the process, so I can get this done, I can get this done. I still run into some brick walls from time to time, but I'm working through them, and I'm learning to be patient with, facing these issues one bit at a time. So it's working out nicely.
Yeah, so at first I had 2 different release plans, because I was in 2 different stages of my life. And the first release plan that I always kept with for a while, for the longest, was honestly just getting back out and selling as much drugs as possible and having the longest run as possible before I got caught up again, if it happened, But that started to change when I got into college, and I actually was really making progress and being part of the Trek program and going to college and being close to getting that degree. Halfway through, that's when I really started to actually come up with the release plan. My last 1.5 years in prison, I came up with the actual real plan of, I'm gonna graduate before I get out. I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna go and get my bachelor's. I'm gonna work in the human services field and work with nonprofits, and I'm gonna be a part of Trek, and I'm gonna, for the first time, own my own house, own my own car. And it's like being halfway there and only being out for 27 days, it's like, I know I got a lot of progress to shoot for, and I know I got a lot more to go, but it's like having that plan that I made, it just really helped a lot, because it gets me prepared, but at the same time, having that good support group of people that will be here for you when you're out and getting and working with Will and with Never, with trekking, you know, and just like being a part of that and actually having someone to be there to lean on, and you know, I could just call up if I need some advice or if I need some help or if something's going on, and you know, actually having a good group of guys to be there, you know, that's something you don't plan for when you're inside. You know, you don't think about that.
No, you don't.
You don't think it's possible, but knowing that it's possible now that I'm out, it helps me stick to my plan that I came up with when I was inside, and makes me want to actually continue to do the work of, you know, working with nonprofits and working with other guys like us and ladies who are justice impacted, and trying to keep guys from just going back and actually helping guys with re-entry. You know, that's a big part of what I plan for, and that I'm, you know, having goals towards, and I'm actually doing good and accomplishing towards.
Thank you.
Awesome. That's great.
So for me, it was they helped me find a housing program because I couldn't move in with my mom, and it's going pretty good, but the housing isn't good. So I've been looking for jobs that just, with my background, it's kind of hard. So, but I'm still out here day by day looking for what I need.
Thanks.
Definitely gets hard.
Yeah, it gets hard sometimes.
So like most of us, we sat in our cells and wrote out our plans, and we were given a booklet from our caseworker.
Right.
You know, your budget, your this, your that, but none of that stuff is realistic. And you've been told to formulate a plan by someone who comes into the facility every day from the outside world, and
Right.
they don't have the kind of boundaries and restraints you have. And yet you've been away from society for what, 3, 4, 8, 10, 15 years? You don't know what's going on out there.
Right.
Because that 15 minutes we get on the phone, we're not talking about gas prices, we're not talking about grocery prices.
No.
That 15
Right.
minutes is being spent talking about other subjects that are like, you know, more pressing. And for me, it was just a lack of like engagement from the state and the government. It's like, oh, you're out, here's the money you saved in your gate fee, and you know, best of luck.
Right.
Call us if you need help. You know, call us if you're feeling depressed or something. We can give you some meds. But I think the big piece that a lot of us had that, you know, some people that are still in there don't have is the family support. Your peers, your family members, and had it not been for that, you know, I probably won't be sitting here.
Yeah.
You know, and having guys like Never when we're in there to talk to, and kind of like, fortunately for me, the people I surrounded myself in there with, 90% of them, we were always plotting something like, yo, what business can we start?
Right.
I seen this on the news. There's this new app. Hey, look at this in this magazine. We could do, you know, we were always, and even if it was like far-fetched or didn't seem really feasible financially,
Right.
but the fact that we're sitting there having this conversation and formulating our future, and it's sad to say, but we as convicts and inmates, we have our bags and we have each other's bags more than the state and more than the institutions that are keeping us.
Right. True that.
So you
And-
kind of touched on, and I want you to say more, starting with you. Our question too is, what kind of help did you receive while you were incarcerated to prepare for your release? Any assistance? And did you believe you were ready?
No, it's the door is moving too fast. Like the assembly line, you know, when you watch these how it's made videos on History Channel, you don't see the guy jumping on a conveyor to save one cookie because it's burnt. That cookie is gonna go and it's gonna fall off somewhere and be disposed of. You know, so the way the system works is that we can't give everything to these dudes when they're going home. We got 300 more coming in we have to work with. So hey, you did your time,
Get
now
out.
go. There's a resource room in every facility. You go in those rooms, there are hundreds of pamphlets all on the wall.
Storage facilities.
It's
99% of those
Useless.
pamphlets are outdated.
Yeah.
They're all
They are.
Like
useless.
some of them are misprinted. You can't barely read the phone numbers on them.
Right.
You call those phone numbers, good luck getting through to anybody.
Right.
You know, and I think that's one of the things that's holding us back as a nation is that we have, or so we've been told, we have all these resources. Where is it?
I think I have found that there's been the rabbit trail of resources where one resource simply takes you to a list of other resources, but
Yeah,
it's
I
not
ran into that a
actually
lot.
a
Yeah.
resource. So it's just like a constant, it's like a shell game
Yeah.
of all the resource people. I got your info, you got my info. Do either one of us actually give anything out? No.
Yeah.
No.
So I think individually, like all of us sitting here, we've told ourselves that we wanted something out of our release, that we wanted to, you know, this time around to be different. And like this lady did by starting her own business and making a list and hitting everything on that list. You know, all of us here have mental lists or physical lists that we need to
Yeah.
hit. And
Really.
however long it takes you, you eventually get there. But it's very mentally draining to rely on the government to get you there. You're better off just strapping your boots and doing it yourself.
Yeah.
Did anyone have a different experience than his when it came to getting any help for reentry from DOC or anyone else?
I think it was the same for all of us. I mean,
I
it
didn't
was
try. I went to the food stamp. They gave me $15. You keep that.
Yeah.
It wasn't because of my credit bureau. It still says that I have money because my first husband was wealthy. So it won't say like I needed help.
Right.
So it ain't nothing. Nothing.
Nothing.
So I did both state and federal time, and my experience in the state system was very similar to yours, where there was little to no assistance. I remember getting released 3 separate occasions from state prisons, where they basically just dropped me off. Little to no gate money and little to no care or concern with how things were going to work out for me. They just dropped me off and were like, contact your parole officer. And then everything I had to do on my own. In the federal system, there was more support. It was not sufficient, but there was a little bit more support. In the federal system, in addition to your prison sentence, you do an additional amount of time on federal probation, and you're able to get some of your time prior to release at a halfway house. And so I took a program called RDAP, Residential Drug Abuse Program, which knocks a year off your sentence if you take it and guarantees that you'll get 6 months halfway house. And so because of that, there was structure, simply because I took that program that might not otherwise existed. I was able to get out 6 months early in addition to the year off my sentence, go to the halfway house, which then gave me the time necessary to get on my feet. And because I was in school and I got a disbursement, I was able to get an apartment and a car. And so there was a lot more support, but the initiative to go to school was an initiative I took, not something from the federal system. But having that extra time where I was still technically incarcerated, but I was at a halfway house, was a really nice measure to ensure that I didn't instantly go to the streets, which is what had happened in all my 3 previous times when I was released from state prison, that I basically was released to homelessness or maybe a shelter, so it practically is homelessness.
Right.
Something I was surprised by, tell me if you guys experienced this, I expected my caseworker to actually be a resource. And every time I went to visit her, she said these exact words, I don't do anything for you. I'm here to tell you what you need to do for yourself, but I'm not going to help you do it. So let me ask you, where are you going to go live? Oh no, you have any suggestions? No, that's not my job. That's your job. You just tell me what you found out. And that was the same for everything. And I think it's a misunderstanding the public has, that person is there to help you with those steps. And no, they're simply telling you, urging you to go do it yourself, or else you're going to be out of luck.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like when what I thought was interesting is, for 6 months before I got out, I was constantly asking, do I have my ID? Do I have my birth certificate? Do I have my social security card? My case manager told me continuously, over and over and over and over again, yeah, it's in your base file. It's in your base file. It's in your base file. I got out, there's none of that. I didn't have anything, right? What I find out about Minnesota is that in Minnesota, if you don't have your birth certificate, you need your ID to get your birth certificate. But you need your birth certificate to get your ID. And you can't get your Social Security card unless you have both of them,
Yeah.
right? Now, I'm like, okay, so wait. I can't have this one without this one. I can't get this one without this one. And this is just not even a question. So how do I do this? What they tell me is I have to know someone for 2 years who is a resident of Minnesota to vouch for me, to witness for me and say, yeah, I've known this person, and whatever. So for 3 weeks, I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I don't know anyone in Minnesota. I don't know anyone who's a resident in this state. The one person that I could even conceivably think of was a guy named Travis, and he's a part of the TREC program, and I won't say too much about that. But he's a part of the TREC program, and Travis was like, well, I've been talking to you for 3 years. I know who you are. And he stepped up and witnessed for me and walked into the office with me. He was like, yeah, I'll sign this. Yeah, I've known him for 3 years. I know exactly who he is. And I was able to get my birth certificate. And from there, everything kind of fell into place. But it's the thing that you go through before you get it. This is your 3 weeks on the street, and you're struggling to try to participate with the society, but it's like, nah, we don't want you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Do what you do, we don't want you. The things that were going through my head at that time, probably illegal to even say on this camera. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I was just willing to do anything. I was like, look, okay, so if I gotta if it's surviving legally or surviving illegally, I'm going to survive regardless. I'm gonna do it regardless. I don't care how you feel about it. Yeah, I'm not just gonna sit out here and rot, you know? And I know if you're not gonna let me do it legally, I can be very comfortable doing it legally. You know what I'm saying? I can be very comfortable doing it the other way if that's what you really want, but you don't really want to push me in that direction. I was really upset by that. But like I said, when Travis came through for me, it flipped everything. And all of that fell by the wayside. But I tried the whole time. I was struggling very hard to be patient with trying to find a way. And the thing is, it's like, and then so what I find now is that, you know, if you give it time, if you're patient, if you wait, if you work through the issue, you'll find a way through it. You just got to be patient with it.
And I had a different experience as far as with this, and that's because in prison, I completed a bunch of programs and everything, but because of my age when I went to prison and the violent crime, they automatically assessed me high risk, you know, to recidivism. So
Right.
automatically, I'm mandatory ISR. I have a high risk. My MNSTAR is very high. They're not going to take that down no matter what I do. I've completed a majority of the programs that they offer, anger management, thinking for a change, everything. Stayed out of trouble, graduated college and everything. They still put me on ISR. So I had a case manager that was shitty, didn't help, didn't do anything. Someone referred me to this program, Opportunity for Change. My last 8 months, someone referred me. I don't know who it was, but I congratulate them for doing it because it got me a case manager that specifically works with guys that are enrolling in that program. And that program it's just extra structure and extra eyes just keeping a watch on you. That's part of the DOC and their partners that they work with through the Goodwill Easter Seals. So it's like, all you really do is you just go to mentoring classes and MRT training, like programs where they got trauma, anger management, stuff like that, you know. And the good thing about it was that case manager that I had, her name was Caprice, and she was so good at her job that she was able to get me my Social Security and make sure I was signed up to take my ID photo to get my ID. And without her, I can honestly say that would have never probably happened. I would have never gotten that. And it's just mainly if you're getting the right case manager or not. And, you know, even though that they put me in a halfway house, I still know that, like, they also aren't like helping you how they're supposed to, because that's all they really did for me. When I'm with this O4C program, Opportunity for Change, they should have these things lined up. They should have people that's going to hire you for a job. They should have housing that's going to get you in there no matter your background or anything. They don't do that. All they have is just funds for you, and they're like, hey, when you figure it out, here you are. If you want to come up here, get some computer training, we can work a resume out with you. We could send you some job links, but that's about as far as it goes. And, you know, it's like, if you find someone to rent to you, we'll help you out with the rent, you know, but other than that, you're on your own. So it's like someone like me who's never really done a lot of this stuff, you're just sending me out here to the wolves to go do it, and I don't know anything about it. You know, it's like, it's kind of like definitely not putting anyone in the right position to succeed for when they're released, but it's like I've gotten more help through TREC, and that's the transformation and reentry through community, and I've gotten more help from them than I have through the DOC. You know, TREC has helped me get an apartment, a job, and it's like they're helping me with schooling and everything, and it's just like the DOC isn't doing anything, you know, except for here, if you need some funds to help you out with something, here it is.
There's a lot of
And that's lucky to be able to get that.
It's something that a lot of people don't understand, and by people I mean like citizens here in Minnesota, is that if you're not in a program like you're talking about, or in some other treatment program, the level of case management that you get isn't what people expect. Most people have little to no case management, but there's programs like the one that you spoke about and other treatment programs that if you go through them, then you get the kind of case management that we probably all expect everyone should get. And that's what I do. I'm a researcher for higher education and prison and reentry. And the story that you've shared is a story that I've heard hundreds of times. People who feel like they've been failed by their case manager, who didn't have a successful reentry plan, and when we do find someone who does feel like they've had the kind of help, it's because they were attached to a program. And it makes me wonder why every person who's incarcerated doesn't get the same level of help in creating a reentry program, and what is the damage that is done to the community when people are released absent a successful plan.
Well, I think the legacy of government afforded aid kind of breaks down when you get to court, when they assign you a public defender.
Right.
So
right.
from the jump, you're just being told, good luck.
Yeah.
You know, like
lives.
before you even get sentenced, before you go to trial, before anything happens in your case, your luck is just slashed in half or to very little.
Yeah.
You know, and the same thing translates to caseworkers. We were lucky, Never and I were in a unit where, fortunately for me, my caseworker's office was in that unit, and everybody in that unit went to her, regardless if that was their I'm talking, they didn't even contact their caseworkers anymore.
Right.
They went to her. And it just shows you like the entrenched nature of the system, to where caseworkers are okay. The fact that they haven't heard from the people on their caseload for months.
Yes.
He ain't write me a kite, I ain't come, well, okay.
That statement alone is funny to me, because the whole time for 2.5 years, right, I'm in Stillwater.
You never saw your case?
I never saw him, I never spoke to him until
Yeah.
the last month I was there. I was down to my last 30 days, and he called me to his office like, okay, what's your plan, what are you gonna do? I was like, what do you mean, what are you saying? I'm supposed to come up with this? You know what I'm saying?
Like, see, stuff like that, you know, and unfortunately, a lot of people with these degrees, they take these jobs. I don't know, some of them have the go hard, like, yo, I'm gonna go in these prisons, I'm gonna help these guys, they're just collecting a check, coming in, swiping their card, going to their office, and just sitting there.
I was very surprised. The PRT, which I can't remember what that stands for, but you're supposed to have a PRT assessment programming.
Pre-release.
Yes. To make sure that any programs that are good for you, and also your caseworker notes what you did take. And at Shakopee Prison, at least, I saw my caseworker once a year for this meeting, and she gave this thing to me. And my husband's incarcerated, and the first time I started talking to him, he had been in prison as long as me, only I was out, but he'd been in for like 8-9 years. And he did not see his caseworker every year. Like you guys said, it had been years. And that just blew my mind. Like, how do you even know what you're doing right now?
Yeah.
How do they know what you're doing for yourself right now? Who's writing that down? He's like, I don't even know what you mean.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
know, they don't care. They don't know,
And,
they don't
and
care.
that's the legacy of it.
So for me, when I was in, I seen my case manager once. And that was at the beginning of my sentence. So I met her at that time. Never met any case managers. Nobody helped me through my whole 2.5 years. And it's like the day 3 days before I get out, I meet with the warden. He comes down into the prison, talks to me, asks me what's my release plan. I'm like, what's that? He's like, haven't you been meeting with your case manager? I met with her one time, and that's when I first came in. He's like, okay. So then I'm like, to be honest, I don't even know what I'm gonna be doing. I don't know. At this time, I already knew where I thought I was gonna be going was my mom's house, but then to find out the place where she was staying doesn't accept felons. So I had to get into contact with my parole agent and let him know that. He got me into this place that I'm staying at now.
Right.
And it's just
You
bad
can
there.
You can say it. I've been there. I've been there. The place is a mess.
Yeah.
It's a government-funded trap house.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. The place is a mess. I was there for the first week I was out, and I was losing my mind in there. Like I cannot stay in this place. Will got me into the place I'm at now. I talked to Tim. I got Chris into the place I'm at now, and it's quiet. It's clean. You know what I'm saying? It's 1,000 times better. And no, it's not one of these government-funded rat holes that where they put me in at first. But yeah, Chris is a good dude, so I had to pull him out of there. I had to get him out of there.
So let's switch to a different question, which we've touched on obstacles and challenges, but I'm curious, what was the very first challenge you came across?
Right.
Of all of them, what happened first that was an obstacle? What about you, Z?
Not really, because I got a job. Pretty much, we were at the Goodwill. They have that stipends coming. And then I got a job. I had a really good job at Macy's because I lied about my application. Then I find out. But I was
That's
making
right.
good money at Macy's. Ooh,
Right.
shoes department making whatever. I got caught because they suspended me at the work police house for like 3 days. So my manager is asking. Next thing you find out about, have you ever been convicted? I say no. So I don't really have it's just the little thing because the things that I used to do before prison, like I was big time loan officer, U.S. Bank, come from First Star, U.S. Bank, I got a wealthy husband. It's just like the changes, but I'm willing to do the work, that's the thing. Like it didn't really, what am I saying? It was challenging for me, but I was ready.
Right.
It didn't really like I'm feeling victim. The other thing is advantage for me is I have a good support. I have the Water of Life Church would call me at 2 o'clock in the morning or pick up my call to pray for me. I have a mentor that I got from prison that would be there for me right away. Then I have a family, few friends that, I had a good support. But I was focused too. I have no time to be stressed because I said I gotta go to school. I keep 2 jobs, school, so I really don't have time for bullshit like 2 jobs and school. One time I went to university and then I went to real estate school and I got 2 jobs.
Right.
So I don't have to I don't have time to be petty.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, you wanna help me? If you don't help me, you don't feed me. I'm hungry. I just drink water because I have school. Like I don't have time to be thinking. I don't know.
So
I didn't really.
this
Go ahead.
kind of a mindset is very common in the immigrant community,
Yes.
and unfortunately, natural-born Americans, or some natural-born Americans, we've kind of been pacified by the government to think that, hey, you don't have to do too much. We're here to help you. If you need help, we're here. Back home in our countries, in whatever country you're from, you have very little to no government help. There's no food stamps. There's no housing aid. You're unhoused, go homeless. You know,
Yep.
so I think growing up in that kind of environment, and back home, I had a distant cousin of mine that got incarcerated when I was like 8, 9 years old, and we had to take food to the prison. Like, there's no chow hall, there's no canteen. So I think it helps us, like transition in a different way when we find ourselves in the system in America. But with that being said, it still should not be that way.
Right.
You cannot offer help to a group of people that are disadvantaged and then say, yeah, you don't qualify for this, you don't qualify for that.
Right.
It's a slap in the face. And I would like to echo what a lot of people are saying nowadays, is that the system isn't broken, it's well oiled.
Right.
Because if you think
Supposed to work
about
this way.
the whole revolving door and how guys are going back, and how kids nowadays 20 years old getting sentenced to 25, 40 years, how they're retaining them. And you're sentencing this kid to 25 years for something that's not even what, and then he gets out in 20-some years, and you're just going to toss him to the streets.
Right.
You had no focus on his mental health, his education, his well-being while he's in there, and when he gets out, there you go.
It's
Or
like
join a men's group or something,
adulting was this word I heard when I first got out that I'd never heard before. But it is a real process that till then I just never heard described that way, of between the ages of 18 and 25, you are learning that you are your own authority and what that looks like and what it means, and to be responsible for yourself. And if you went into prison at 18 or younger, you didn't learn that. So you're going to learn it when you get out, but you have that as an additional thought going on.
To have some of my peers in there come up to me, and some guys still can't read a letter,
Right.
Yeah.
or like they can't type up a letter on their tablets. That was I'm like, dude, you go to school every day. I see you
Yeah.
going to classes every day. What are they teaching y'all in there?
Okay, I also want to add, what's the problem? Then there's 10 years, and I did tutor. Especially in women, I think 85, maybe higher than that. A lot of inmates are not really educated.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah.
I had a girl that coming back for 4 times, still don't get the GED. In our country, where I come from, education is like a must. The government, you have to go to school, regardless of you're poor or not. You have to be able to read by the time you're 8 and speak English by the time you're 12. You understand? Here it's just like United States, education doesn't take it seriously. And the next thing you know, it's too late. Then you gotta hurry up and get your GED.
Right.
That's the thing, because I think education, it gives you confidence. I don't care what people think. I have 2 degrees. Right now I own a condominium. Some people say, do you own it? Do you rent? I can't believe you. I don't really care, because I don't have to slap you with these papers.
That's right.
You understand what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
So I think education really is give you the confidence that you can do it. Hey, I have this, I have this, I have this background. But guess what? That's done and over with. I graduated with honors.
Yeah.
There are guys. I'm sorry.
I agree with her. I was an English tutor for ABE at Shakopee, and one time a woman came in and said she hadn't been to school since 3rd grade. I was like, how is that even a thing?
Yeah.
And so it's true.
Education. United States has to provide better education here.
Yeah, the thing is there were guys. There were a couple guys, especially in Stillwater. There were a couple guys who probably should have been in school, but you know how we get. We're men. We don't want to admit that we don't know anything.
Yeah.
Right? We know everything, so you can't tell us nothing. But they would come to myself hey, show, hey, Nev, oh look, man, can you help me figure this out, or can you help me read this, or can you help? Yeah, man, come on in here. You know what I mean? So it's like you have that element where you have some people who maybe they dropped out of school, maybe they lived in an environment where education just wasn't significant in their home. For whatever reason, they didn't think they were going to need it, and then now they're in a situation where, okay, I'm a year from getting out, and I still can't read. I'm a year from getting out, and basic math is a problem for me. You know what I'm saying? and then they go looking for that person. I know you probably ran into the same issue. I know you definitely ran into the same issue. But they go looking for that person who's willing to try to help. You know what I'm saying? And I think that as like Holly was saying, as Z was saying, you know, there are some people inside who are willing to put in the time and try to help people out, but it's rare. It's rare. And the thing is, and I think that there should be more emphasis, especially on education, because me personally, and I think Will would agree with me on this, I know Holly would agree with me on this, I believe Z would agree, but I know that education is the one thing that most people, when they get out, if you're lacking that, then you're probably gonna end up back in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that education is the one thing that you're gonna get out. It's gonna keep you out.
Yeah.
It's the one thing you're gonna get out, and you're gonna maintain, because you know you have more information, you have more opportunities. You know what I'm saying?
You speak better, you act better, your environment will change to the level where you at. It's just difference when you that. It's just because when you barely have a GED, I'm like, nah, fuck that. I could just sell this dope and make this couple $100 really quick.
Right.
Instead of I could fight because I could do this. I have that experience. I could do better based on what you could really fight for it. And if that person say no, then you keep it moving because you know you got that.
Right.
It was really disheartening and fearful to have conversations with guys who their former life was like not anything related to education. They didn't even think about it. Like they left high school and did not look back. And this particular brother he had completed one college degree. He wanted to go for his other degree, and the DOC was they're like, oh, well, you have a violent crime and we can't send you to Moose Lake. But it's like, you got killers in Moose Lake.
Right.
Like, just because I killed somebody in this fashion, this person did this in that fashion, how is he any different? How is it that he can get sent up there to finish his degree, but I can't? You know, like, and this guy was fighting them. He fought them. He did not stop until they sent him up there.
Very good.
And a person has to be inspired to know that education is available to them and it matters. So I was kind of like that guy. I left high school, didn't do really any college. And when I got to prison, I was like, well, now I screwed it up.
Yeah.
Even if I'd wanted, I'm out of luck.
And I think one of the things that really like put fire in his back, for lack of a better term, while we're in there, his son got sentenced to prison, and his son was in there with us. And like, that's being an immigrant, that's like a whole nother level of prison experience for me, is seeing someone interacting with their kid in a child hall and they're both serving time.
Yeah. For me,
he did not want to continue what he, or I guess do what his son did, not going to school, not finishing it. So he kind of wanted to set an example for him, like, hey, if you're going to potentially come back to this place, this is what you can do. If you don't want to come back to this place, this is what you can also do. So
having
So
options.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say, my second year in prison, we didn't have TREC program or even college campuses at that time, back in 2011, 2012, but we had the occasional community college come in and teach this class or that class. There was no degree program or anything, but you could take them. So I signed up for one, and the teacher came in and she said, I have a PhD, I'm teaching this class, but I want to let you know I served 5 years in prison, and I had no education when I went to prison. While I was there, I took a training program, and they told me, hey, you're a good student, you should keep going. She says, so when I got out, I did, and now I have a PhD, and I'm teaching you. And I was so blown away by that. Like, there's still hope for me? Like, I could be like her, and I was so inspired by that's why I'm still going to school today, right? But if she hadn't come there and said that, I wouldn't have even felt that hope.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Never and what you said there about the importance of education. Research shows that education is the single greatest tool that will stop someone from committing crimes in the future. And some people think that that's because of the connection to employment. That may be true, but either way, education is the path to do that. And unlike you, I didn't have no inspiration when I was getting out and going to school. Up until I most recently got out, I only had a GED. I wasn't what you would consider a traditionally educated person, but I was locked down for 23 hours a day for the majority of my time. And so I read a lot and I learned a lot, and I developed a hunger for education. And you asked us at the beginning, our barriers. One of the biggest barriers that I faced coming out was the fact that I had this record and I was pursuing education at a time where there wasn't these programs that existed, such as TREC, where students were unable to access the Pell Grant because of the 1994 crime bill. Right. And so I didn't have no one that I knew of that I could look up to that had completed college. So when I was telling people that I wanted to go to school, whether it was my parole officer, whether it was even the school, there was always this doubt of whether someone with my educational background, having only a GED, and someone with the criminal record that I've had would make a good student. And why would I want to pursue this? Why don't I just go work construction? And it's something that I faced then, and I think people still face today, having talked to people who struggle with this, where when you get out and your parole officer or your probation officer isn't so interested in your educational journey and they want to know where you're getting a paycheck at. And there's a whole nother alternative to working full time as a means to escape the cycle of incarceration. Education is a good path as well.
Right.
But we have to get people in the criminal justice system to believe that. Yeah. And so that was one of my major struggles. And another one is that my family's all in Virginia. I did have a son where I got released, but I'd been incarcerated for much of his life and he didn't know me, so I lacked any kind of support network. And so sometimes I look back at it and I think it's kind of a miracle that I've gotten as far as I have. I've got a bachelor's degree. I'm finishing my third master's degree now, and I look back at where I was and I can't imagine that I would ever be where I'm at. And it inspires me to do the kind of studying and the work that I do to help other people who are incarcerated so that they can get degrees, so they can see that it's possible, and so that I can get them to be involved in the space of reentry and higher education. Because while I love our allies and all the people who have the PhDs who come and help us and stuff like that, it's great to have them support us. But we need more people with our past at the table making decisions about what's going to happen to our future, rather than having a bunch of people who don't have this experience tell us what it's going to be.
We should be the educated experts on the subject.
That's right.
No,
Absolutely.
That is true. You have someone decided something in a subject that they're not familiar
And they're not familiar with it all.
they've never experienced.
That's the reason your caseworker sent you once.
That's right.
Something I want to talk about, maybe a little off topic, but something that I wanted to talk about, this reminds me of it, is that I'm the reentry coordinator for the TREC program, Transforming Reentry through Education and Community. And I encounter a lot of other people who do reentry work, and I feel that the way that they look at the problem is wrong. And so a lot of times when you get out, people just assume that you're out now, you're free, there's all these things I want you to do, you can just go do it. But I like to talk about it as if we're moving through different realities. Throughout our entire life, we are developing the tools necessary to interact with the world that we have around us, to interact with our reality. And from that, we learn respect, we learn how to carry ourselves, we learn how to do all these things. But then you get incarcerated, and it's like you enter a whole new reality. You don't know what people are up to, you don't know what games they're doing, or they're trying to manipulate me. So we often refer to these people as fish. It's kind of a nickname that we give to new people, because they don't know what's up. And they have to develop the tools to navigate their new reality, this reality of incarceration. And then when people get out, again, they're thrust into a whole new reality. They lack all the tools that they had prior to them going in to navigate this reality. And so we, as reentry coordinators, if we're just expecting you to act like nothing ever happened, like you never just spent all this time in prison, or steeped in this new reality with new tools that don't serve you well out here, then I'm setting you up for failure. So I need to help bring you along. I need to help interact with you in the way that the tools that you have right now, and then help you change those tools to service you better when you're out here. If you don't think about that, then you're setting up your clients for failure. And the problem is that our entire system doesn't think about that. And so it doesn't do anything to help you. a good solution to this is to be working with people 6 to 12 months prior to release to help get them a work release plan, to help give them the tools necessary to navigate the reality that they're going to be thrust upon. But we don't do that. But that's what I do as a reentry coordinator.
Well,
think it's
see,
a
you
problem
talked
that
about that, having a
Some
mentor.
inmates don't know how to use cell phone.
Absolutely.
That's
I went to university and they don't even listen to the professor. Everybody pull up cell phone. I said, oh, it's kind of rude. I don't know, because I know I get a lot of help though, because I'm not afraid to ask for help. They be helping me,
Yeah.
but it's embarrassing. I'm taking international business and commerce, management major. I don't know how to use the phone now.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
So with me, it's like mine is like having a hard time finding jobs. Because it's like, so what I've been doing lately is, so my little brother is a professional mover. He can hire people as cash workers. So then I don't have to inform him about my felonies. So lately I've been jumping on jobs every maybe once a month to be able to like pay my cell phone bill, get some food and stuff like that for myself. But lately, haven't been doing no cash jobs, so I've been having to help my mom out with taking care of my dad. So my mom's a PCA worker, and she can't report me as a helper because you can't be a felon and be a PCA worker. So I've been just struggling just to find jobs, housing, until never helped me with this new place.
I agree with that. I think employment it really shouldn't factor in a felony background. I find that a lot of jobs, felony wouldn't disservice you or disqualify you. It has nothing to do with, it's a remote job, you're working at home on nothing important, right? What does it matter? But it's simply the business owner's personal preference as to what they think is moral.
right.
Right?
Can I say about that job?
Yeah.
I had an interview with Home Depot. They were paying me $24.75. So in the middle of interview, they were giving me $3 more. They must have liked what they heard. They give me $3 more. They see me with a uniform. I'm supposed to be working in Maple Grove area for 6 months. They give me an orange uniform because after 6 months, I'm running this plane. Now, by the time they find out about my crime, I never ready to go back.
They let you go?
That's right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm interested in knowing from each of you, Marshawn, you briefly touched on it. Who right now is most significant in your life, or what organization has played the most significant part in your life right now as far as help? It can be a family member that just provided emotional support, or a nonprofit that really, to you, was a significant help. So for each of you, who has been the most significant?
My mentor that I get from, I forget the company. Well, I got her from when I was in prison, Barbara. She's all the time, she called me and supported me, and she's very resourceful too. She gave me all the resources.
Nice. What about you, Will?
For me, it's Metropolitan State University. I've had several mentors there. Professor Sands, Professor Gemma Punty, Professor Travnik. There's a lot of professors at Metropolitan State University who's been a real good source for me. My goal is, after I complete this third master's degree, is to go get my PhD. And they've been instrumental in giving me support in doing the kind of work that I want to, learning the things that I want to. One of the beautiful things about our university is we have something called student-directed independent studies, so I can make my own course to study a very particular subject if that's something I'd like to do. I just recently did a national research project. It was original research. I got to know a lot of the leaders throughout the nation in the field of higher education and prison, and that would not have been possible without the SDIS as a Metropolitan State University. And prior to that, I was always concerned that my background would hinder me from being able to get into that ivory tower to get that PhD. But now that I'm getting known nationally in this field, I feel like a lot of doors have opened up that maybe there's a possibility for me. So it'd be Metropolitan State University.
It's kind of a hard question, and I would love to say it was my parents and they're very helpful and significant, or my kids, or even my husband. But ironically, I think the most significant person in my reentry was my last boss, who owned a medium-sized company and put me in charge of it. And we had like almost everybody there was a felon. I mean, it was like almost felons only can be applied here with any charge, right? And to be put in a position of leadership and then supported by the company owners.
Nice.
Like, she speaks for us. And to know that that was possible, and that was a really great learning experience. And I don't work there anymore. I'm going to school now, but that gave me the confidence to know that someone actually would hire me to run a $1 million company, and I'm the boss.
Yeah.
Now,
being a
only,
part of the solution.
yeah, being part of the solution, even a couple years out of prison, that's a lot of, help for me to keep moving forward.
Right. No, for me, it's the huge, like big time is the TREC program itself, both at MCTC and at Metro State. At Metro, the entire College of Individualized or Independent Studies, and like everybody there, and particularly and especially Mr. Will Lever has been like right there with me, like through the whole thing. If I had a question, he's got it. He's got my back. He's on it. He's like, if I got a problem, he's like, okay, well, here, let me make this phone call for you. The thing is, though, it's like, so he's been like, I can say it, he's been like a mentor to me since I've been out. Thank you, bro. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Same time, though, on a more like moral, more spiritual level, I have a friend who's been a friend for 15 years. And even though she's not in this state, she's down in Savannah, Georgia right now. But I get calls from her regularly, and she checks in on me constantly, and she's always concerned and helpful and supportive in a more spiritual, I guess mental, spiritual, like emotional kind of a way. You know what I'm saying? And it's like a lot of times, like when I feel like I'm ready to break, she's like, nah, not yet. Yeah. You know what I mean? Not yet. So yeah. KLC, if you see this, yeah, you know who I'm talking to.
Yeah. I mean, of course it would be family, but with a lot of my family being out of state, they're still being supportive. So I would have to go further and say the TREC program in and of itself, like you said, MCTC and Metropolitan State, whether it be Will, Travis, at Metro, and then on MCTC side, it being Mike, Sarah, Matthew, Marin, just everyone there just really helping out. And even beyond TREC, you got just staff at Metro and MCTC, with meeting with Sabine and Sabine at MCTC, helping me get a job, just making that call and being like, hey, I got a guy, he's ready to work, and getting me in that door and just being supportive. And the organizations that work with TREC and that TREC has up under them and that are a part of the TREC, and meeting with housing navigators, with Tiana and everything, and really making those calls and really having those resources, and it just being there has been a real big help.
So for me, it would be my little brother, because he's always there to pick me back up when I get down about, like, because he's been there for me. He's the one who came and picked me up from prison. So he knows how it's been. For me, it's been rough, especially with my depression and everything. So he picks me back up whenever I'm down.
Nice. Amen. And how about you?
For me, that support, that whole system changes, it shifts every now and then. For us immigrants, it's never the same. There's that first initial shock when you go. You're given a tough love, no letters, no calls.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think traditionally, it's hard on our parents the most, because they're very unfamiliar with like what to do. from my cousins and, you know, other family members, they were somewhat familiar. We've had friends or distant relatives, you know, get incarcerated. But during the last portion of my sentence, I had reconnected with my uncle, William Bruce, who lives out in Maryland. And interestingly, when I was a kid back in Ghana, I used to think he was my dad because he was always around. So we got reconnected, and then my first cousin Gabriel, we got reconnected. Gabriel ended up coming to the States while I was incarcerated, and the two of them kind of been my rock. But I also have a friend of mine who's from the Congo, and he lives in Minneapolis. He adopted me to his family. I would, you know, get letters from his mom, his dad, his brothers, and that right there was very big because, like I was just speaking to, what's his name, Mr. Washington out there about support. If you sentence somebody to 15 years and all they got was one phone call, one visit in that 15 years, you're releasing a very unstable human being back into society.
Yeah.
So speaking on that, our last question is really two-part. I want each of you to say, looking at your future right now, how do you feel about it?
My future is bright, girl.
Yes.
Way bright.
So hope.
Yes.
And then what advice would you give, if any, to people who might be watching and are in a similar experience or who have a family member in that experience?
Attitude is way more than aptitude. You have to have that attitude that you can do it.
Yeah.
You could have a degree, but if your self-esteem is fucked up, you ain't gonna do it no good.
Yeah.
Right.
But hey, everybody get a chance. If it's no to you, it's gonna be yes or something. Just your confidence, attitude. You have to have it.
How about you, Will?
You know, I'm optimistic but uncertain. You know, I'm thinking of a conversation I had at MCTC recently where we were discussing some work that needed to be done, and they said to me, well, you know, you're maybe the right person for this, but we think we should give it to someone else because we're concerned that you're going to do great, your future is set, you're good to go. But I don't feel that way. You know, I have my third master's degree that I'll be getting here soon, and I'm going forward and hopefully getting my PhD. But despite all those degrees, despite the fact that I'm known nationally in this field and that I do a lot of writing, I can't get anyone to really hire me. I have run my own consultant company, and I have national organizations constantly hiring me to do academic work or to do writing for them. And so I'm not concerned that I won't be able to make an income, but it's a much different thing than someone to hire you as a contractor than someone to hire you as an actual employee.
Right.
And despite all of that, I still can't really get people to do that, it seems. And so I'm always concerned that that may be something that I'm going to continue to struggle with. It's the same thing with the PhD. Every one of the doctors that we're talking about, people who hold PhDs that are in this field, are telling me, oh, for sure you're going to get in. Of course they're going to let you get in. You know, your writing's great, your research is great, this, that, and another, but I'm like, but yet I'm not in a PhD program.
Right.
And part of it is when people look at my past, I feel like they balk a little bit, that they're like, I'm not so sure. Is that the guy that we want? And so I'm going to continue the journey. I don't lack self-confidence or self-esteem. That's why I've been in education for so long. And I hope to one day be able to come back and be like, you can do it. It's hard. It seems like it's not going to succeed. You're never sure. But if you just stay the course, this is what will happen. Right. But I don't know the story that's going to be written. I also sometimes wonder if 4 or 5 years go by and I don't get into the PhD program, no one will hire me. I'm struggling to pay my rent. And am I going to be constantly, you know, impoverished and trying to get the state to help me because I don't have the means of supporting myself? And like I said, it's not a lack of confidence, but I don't know what the future is for me. And that isn't, that's no position that any of us should be in. My crime was more than 15 years ago. I think I've done enough to prove that I'm not the threat to society that I once was. How long will it take for society to agree with me?
Yeah, yeah.
I echo that and add one other thing I feel about my future is curious, right? I'm optimistic, but like you, it's uncertain. but in an optimistic way, almost like an adventure or whatever. I'm interested to see what that looks like and what changes can be made. And if I had to give advice, I would piggyback on what you said about how much contact a person has while they're in prison really can almost project what their reentry will be like. And you don't have to wait for people to come visit you.
Correct.
Or even to have people willing to answer the phone. Their cell phone will tell them how many times you called that they did not answer. And that sends a message. And so even just that dedication of, I'm going to start reaching out, and eventually, you know, but knowing that you have that. So that's my advice is, don't wait for them to come visit. Just start making calls. And even if they don't answer, keep calling.
Yeah. Phone calls are free. We're gonna blow you up.
That's right. That's right.
See, I'll be all right to be getting phone call because I want to be there for them, listen to them, but then they start.
Yeah.
No,
That's just it don't miss. It don't. I said, oh my God. Give me time, but they want it right away.
no. I don't know. For me, it's. I think it's just sheer determination. Like I refuse to fail. For me, that's just what it is.
That's right.
However I got to do it, whatever I got to do to get it, whether I got to start my own business, whether I stay in school and actually achieve this PhD, which is right now my goal, and I am confident that I will achieve that. But however I got to do it, I feel like I'm determined. I'm determined. I'm not.
Good word.
Amen.
I'm not going to fail. I will not fail.
What about you?
Yeah, with me, it's like you said, I'm determined, I'm full of energy, I'm a high-driven person, and I gotta achieve and accomplish so much because I felt like at first those years I was in prison was wasted, but then I feel like also now that I'm out, I know it wasn't wasted. I use those years to use it as experience to propel me for what I want to do in the future. And I know in the future, I would love to sit and get Will, Never, other guys, you know, together and just really, even if it's just us getting a nonprofit started and actually working and doing the work to really be there for the next guys that are getting out and ladies that are getting out and really help them and like really be there and use that to navigate, to get them education, housing, job, everything, mental health, whatever it is. It's just like being there to really help and like being with people who've been through the same experience as you is something that I'm really looking forward to and really getting together so that way we can all help each other because we're all we got really.
Yeah.
How about you, Chris?
So for me, I'd have to say driven, because if I dedicate myself to doing something, I'm gonna do it. I learned how to do a couple different things in prison, and I make beaded items. And so far I've sold about probably a good maybe 70 pieces.
Good.
How much a piece?
Huh?
How much a piece?
How much?
Depends on what size it is.
So give me
so-
that, what's this?
So
Average.
the smallest piece would be about 50 to 60. The biggest piece I've made, I've sold for over $1,000.
So 50, 60, and you made 70 of them?
No, it ranges from sizes. So I make some small ones, big ones.
I'm trying to calculate how much you made so far. That's what I'm trying to.
How much money I've made? so far?
yeah. I'm plugging you in where you can seal that at.
Probably around $9,000.
Very good. Then you keep it moving. That's
Yeah,
good.
That's awesome.
You push that hard enough, you don't need a job.
Yeah.
Yep.
Working for yourself.
You
What
understand?
about
Yeah, I
you?
get
Yeah,
it.
I will help you out. Put that in Mercari, eBay. I got the store, all three of them.
Yeah, I got somebody
Easy.
doing that too.
Easy.
That's a business pitch, Chris.
Etsy is
That's a
free.
pitch.
Get on it. Use your camera phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think, so I when I came home, I kind of made up my mind in prison to, you know, eventually go back home to either Ghana or Liberia after my parole. But then I decided, you know, why do that when there are people, you know, this guys here still needing my help. I don't know to what capacity I can help. before going to prison, I was a self-taught photographer, so I plan on using, you know, that talent to, you know, shed some light on what's going on out on the streets or in there, in whatever artistic form that I can. When I was in Faribault, my last three and a half, almost 4 years, when the whole George Floyd stuff was happening, I was reading Rolling Stone magazine, and I came across this black-owned book club that serviced men in prison. And I contacted them, and I started supplying guys with books in Faribault and other prisons. And I plan on, you know, at least continuing something like that. And, you know, because it's a cliche, but it's so true. If you look at where you came from, the obstacles you overcame, what you're facing is nothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, that's just the bottom line of it.
So you're thinking about starting a nonprofit to get books to people in prison?
Yeah.
Never knows a guy.
Yeah. And because I feel like No Name Book Club, the club that I was a part of, they're based in California, they're kind of overwhelmed with the population over there. They're dealing with a lot of guys, and I think it maybe if we start a branch here or do our own thing, that'll be, because if the system isn't educating our brothers right, we have to kind of help them get educated, because some of the books we were getting, like, you couldn't find them in the library.
Yeah.
You could not, like, no way. Like, even the librarian was like, where'd you guys get this book? Like, where'd you get this book?
good.
I need to know. But doing something, you know, even if it's not like my main focus or whatever, doing something, going to visit some random guy one day, like walking in a visitor room, like, who the heck are you?
Yeah.
Sitting for 2 hours and having a conversation with this human being.
Right.
You know, like, just anything. Sending the random guy, you know, a letter or something, you know.
Very good.
So,
I think that's awesome.
Very good.
Yes, it is. So I'm going to wrap up since we're out of time, but I want to thank each of you for coming here and sharing.
Thank you.
And
It's a pleasure.
maybe you can be back again for another panel if you have the availability and the time. And
be
to
here.
everyone who's been watching the episode, for more great episodes like this one, you can visit thewashingtontowfoundation.com and learn more. Use the contact form, fill it out, let us know what your thoughts are, thoughts for the guests, thoughts for the foundation. We would love to hear from you, and thank you for joining us.
The end.
Yay!